Uh, Really, with the SPY, I didn't play it as much, but it moves similar to the QQQ. So as always, I would have placed like a little line for looking for the break below the 5-minute candle to look for a play down. I'm also keeping in mind this top right here. And so really it broke down. Maybe you'd want to enter puts. You see a little bit of consolidation right there, but the open of that candle is, I guess that'd be below the high of that one. And so then you see that nice little reversal pattern that we usually talk about. It reverses, hits that, consolidates, and then breaks above it. And so really, I mean, if you're looking for this gap down, you got there, saw a reversal pattern, had to get out, and you probably either made a slight amount of money or you just waited until it came back up, hoping for it to bounce back down, and you broke even. But on the, for instance, I'll go to the ones that I just alerted today in the chat that I have. The QQQ, I alerted and said, like, only buy if we get above 164. Why? Because we came up before we sold off this morning, almost at, 164. Just, sorry, I like to get these really accurate. Just almost below it. We came up, sold off, and so, just waiting the whole day. And then once we break out above it, come down, test it right there. We come down, test it, and then you take off. And I have to admit, that was so this move, I would say right here, was kind of like what I was predicting, and I was kind of thinking that maybe we would test it and slowly go up to like 164.50, maybe 165. But really, you got lucky because I told people to be buying like at 164, and so a lot of people right here. This isn't, my skill in predicting it, but we got lucky and had that news, and so these people bought. A lot of people that I know came down when I said it in the chat. It's going to come back and retest maybe 164. It came down and retested it, and just so happened that almost right after it retested it, we had that news come out. So all these people got to hold for a big pump right there because of what happened with the Fed. And then the other major thing I talked about was talking about BABA a little bit. So BABA we had go up. At open, you have a gap up. And so if you were looking for the gap down, you could have just drawn this little line right here waiting for that. And it never came back down below it. So, just something to have on your radar, but it never happened. And really, BABA came up, came back down and consolidated. And this is how I was able to make the play later on in the day, is because you should notice this consolidation that we have right here, that it's kind of forming this range right here. It's breaking out between. And so, in my opinion, if it would have broken out below this range right there, let's say this line away, not get too many, then I expect a strong move down, and bouncing off it, I expect a strong move up. And why? Is because you have all this volume right here, all this consolidation, and so you have all these positions being built. And so it's a significant level, meaning that if it breaks below it, it should overextend down, and if it breaks above it, it should overextend up. And so that's why I said looking for like, I have it 2 cents off right there, but looking for like a 163 bounce when we were in the chat. And so anyway, it went up, and you can see it broke out of this consolidation level. I believe it tested it right there. I can't tell if it quite did, but like this candle did, broke out just above it, and then kept coming back up and consolidated just a tad bit up here. I have to say that this top, not a great way to see that. I mean, you can see the candles go up and it close and it consolidates a little bit, and you would know if it breaks below it, that that line, that it's a good chance of a sell-off because it's been consolidating up there. But let's see, that 5-minute candle is pretty big. Could you have seen that on the 1 minute? Yeah, so in the 1 minute, you got a pretty hard sell-off. I mean, you could have probably got out like right up here when you see that sell-off starting, but you couldn't have predicted that sell-off was coming. You would have lost just a tad bit of money if you were long. But yeah, you can see it goes up there, no real resistance, and it consolidates. And so, of course, that means that on the way down, you're not really going to have a lot of resistance. You can see right here, You have a little bounce right there at the whole dollar level, which is where most of, well, in the 1 minute, you could see that little bump right there, but it was consolidating a little bit at the whole dollar level, and so you got just a little bit of a bounce. Then it sold back off, but yeah, just same, no resistance really going up, so you're not going to have a whole lot of resistance coming down. And so, of course, that means the same thing next time. And so I was looking because of this really obvious to me consolidation right here that you bounce off of it. And so we came down, hit it, and it consolidated for a little bit, and then we bounced off of it. And then if you're still holding, looking for it to get up here, well, you once again got lucky with the news, and it shot us up above it right there. And then we came down, kind of hit that level right there, broke just below it a little bit, and closed a little bit up. So yeah, really this consolidation and this consolidation, but really this level right here should have allowed you to notice this play going up. Maybe couldn't call the top. You'd have to admit you probably couldn't call it the top exactly, but if you were long, you should be able to get out if you were watching the chart live with like minimal losses on the way down. And if you saw this consolidation, then you could have shorted it with the break below. And then it comes right back down to this level, and I alerted everyone to go long because you're hitting that consolidation again. And especially the first time you hit it, you're going to expect it to bounce. And so it did. And then you got hit with that lucky news from the Fed. And so Facebook, I made a call on Facebook, and I thought this was just uh, to me a very, very obvious play, and so let me just explain why. So if you just look and see where the top of that range was that we sold off in the 5-minute candles, we test that there, close at it there, and open at it there on that sell-off, and then up here we test it and it reverses back down. And so, you can kind of see you have this flat top on this thing right there. It's just top that's been built. And so, I didn't know what was going on really until about, because I'm honest, you can't predict every move, but I didn't really know exactly what was going on until about like right in there, and I was like, okay, yeah, we have a little flat top on this thing. We've tested a lot of times, come up, tested again, and sold off. But what did I notice right here? Well, you can see that we're not coming down as far. We're trending up, we sell off, and we sell off just a little bit, and so you got to think about the psychology of it. You have this top where people are probably shorting or selling. Really, I assume a lot of people are shorting. And so buyers are coming in, we sell off, buyers come in pretty fast. We hit it, we sell off, buyers come in really fast, right there and right there. And we're barely selling off anymore. So the buyers and the sellers are getting closer and closer if you're looking at demand to being equal. And so with that flat top on it, and with this upward pattern, meaning the buyers are coming in faster, that tells me that if and high probability of when, high probability that we will, but if we finally break this level, you're going to get a pretty good squeeze, and you did. As soon as you broke it, you got these two real quick candles popping up, and then it came back down and tested just that 148 level, which is about where that closed, psychological, nice big whole number, and it just kept running the whole day. And it really at 149 would have been a good place probably to predict profit if you didn't know what the Fed was going to say, and it also started selling off, and I think right there is that candle where the Fed said something, and then we just get a nice little run again. And then on a side note, I just have to throw this in there. So this wasn't a play that you could have really known just from technical analysis, but really I was just playing the probabilities because I feel like Facebook is a little bit oversold, and I don't know why. I can really think of a fundamental reason why their earnings would be bad, just based on me doing some research kind of with the stuff maybe that have been taught in school. And so after hours, I have March 15th, February, March 15th, 160 calls on Facebook. And so after hours, we got that good earnings, and we got a good CC conference call. And so yeah, Facebook ended up, I think after hours is done now, yeah, and it ended up stopping after hours at 167.74. So those calls for Facebook are just going to be up huge, and if we open around these levels, really anywhere near it, they should be up a lot. And I just wanted to show why I got in that. The fundamental analysis and some of the research that I know from the schooling, I can't, or most of it I figured it out on my own. A slight amount I know from schooling, I can't really tell you, but just showing what you notice in the trend, and why I said probabilities, is this thing has just been selling off so hard on. I mean, yeah, we have a little bit of news, and you had the bad earnings, like with the privacy issues, but it really just looks oversold, selling off on this huge downtrend. And I think I made a video about this a couple weeks ago. But if you were to just kind of draw a line here, you see that downtrend, lower highs, and then it kind of breaks right around like this area, and you can tell we're getting a little bit of a reversal. Then with this candle gapping up and going right there, to me, I'm thinking, is this the bottom? And now we have the start of a new trend. And to me, I thought the probabilities were in my favor that this thing is sold off so much that if we have a bad earnings, it's kind of expected. So it's probably not going to go against me too far. And if we have a good earnings, then you should get a shoot up, kind of like we did. And if these things are up, like I think one call maybe that I had, I think cost 300 when I bought it, and you'd probably be able to sell every one of those if it opened at this price around uh, just below maybe 1,000. I may be a little bit wrong on that. I just did some quick calculations in my head, but you would be able to sell them for, it should be up quite a bit. And I think this trend may continue, but I'll collect profit on those just because it is so much. And I wouldn't be surprised if you get a pullback over the next couple of days, but I do think this trend might continue. And with the good news we have on the SPY now, that is another reason I thought it was good to get in this, because you have the possible good earnings and then also the slight pull up based on the overall market. Someone else in our chat was talking about the overall market on things. Interesting how they affect stocks. Little interesting thing about that is that we were studying in one of our classes, and the reason that is because the cash flow, well, of course, a lot of these ETFs hold these big stocks and stuff, but the cash flow from hedge funds and mutual funds, if a stock has high institutional ownership, which a lot of these funds do, then you notice that they more closely generally follow the SPY, because a lot of these funds, the way they function with the market going up or down, it'll also affect the cash flow of these funds. And so they're having to open and close positions based on, like why the now Facebook had bad earnings, and that's what this was. But for instance, like someone talking about like BABA or something, BABA has pretty good institutional ownership. Amazon has really good institutional ownership, and just look at it following, you can see it kind of bouncing around, not exactly, but similarly to the SPY. And so they're going to move on their own. And I do agree with that person, he had it right. The movements from the earnings and stuff on this stock and news, and that specific stock does affect them, but they move overall in a trend that does sort of match with the with like the S&P. Okay, well, you can't really tell it on that, but if you just look at the actual S&P chart, it does somewhat match it, and that's because the cash flow of these big hedge funds and stuff, if the market starts going down, it's going to match. People are going to be pulling out their money, and as it's going up, people are likely to add in their money. And when they have a correlation with all these funds and all these ETFs that are very highly correlated together, you find that the big names with high institutional ownerships are generally going to move pretty close to the market. And that's also the way a lot of the algorithms are written to work. The algorithms a lot of the time work, they can be built on things to correlate with the market, and then using some way like UVXY and stuff with volatility and things like that. There's some algos that trade very similar to that. But so anyway, the stuff at the end, I guess that's not exactly, I guess you could say, proven, but I do think that that's pretty accurate. I do think that a lot of these stocks move with the market, especially if they have higher institutional ownership. And then just in the beginning of that video, that was my recap of a lot of the trades that you probably could have made today. And yeah, pretty good day. I think everything I alerted made money. Everything we talked about in the chat made money, especially Facebook on my swings and on intraday stuff. Just really, really big profit. And so, yeah, I hope everyone made money today. I hope that helped you out. And if you have any questions, as always, just ask me.